On August 20th, 1619, 20 Africans arrived at Point Comfort, present day Fort Monroe in Hampton, Virginia, aboard a Dutch ship. They were the first Africans on record to be forcibly settled as involuntary laborers in the North American British colonies. Your thoughts?
Well, this was, as you said, the first ones that we know of. And it's historic in that it was the beginning of the most horrendous Holocaust that humanity has ever witnessed at all. We talk about people try to justify this by saying, well, there was slavery with the Muslims and slavery there, and it was. All those things that exist. But this is the first time that people were actually so into that which became a major commercial enterprise that created the wealth for everything that the Western world has to stay right now. That's right. This was the historic nature of this, as a great historian wrote, the peculiar institution. And it is from there that we have to look at what it has done to the world, but more importantly, how we need to trace who we are as people of African descent back to our origins of the continent of Africa. So this is an opportunity for us here in Philadelphia and around the United States to commemorate this 400-year historic event, and at the same time uplift and write about and teach about what has not been dealt with adequately in the school system, our education. I got 3 degrees, man. There's no place you can go to find out what happened to black people other than to say they were slaves. You know, I mean, that's the struggle. And we must struggle against that and continue. And I think all of our historians and leaders, going back to Robert Walker, the great Martin R. Delaney, all the way back, Marcus Garvey, of course, Du Bois, that's what they've been trying to teach us for hundreds of years, and we as a community of black people have not adequately caught on to what this message is to teach us about who we are. Because all of them in their own language have said, until we know our own history and who we are, we're doomed to repeat it. And that's what we've been doing, repeating it over and over again for the last 400 years.
So you mentioned leadership. On January 10th, 2018, the 45th president, Donald Trump, signed into legislation a bill that establishes a 400 years of African American history commission. Your thoughts?
Well, let me say Donald Trump was prompted to do that by the great Congressman Robert C. Scott from Virginia, an African American brother who I happen to know very well. He was formerly a member of the National Black Caucus of State Legislators when David P. Richardson Jr. was the chairman. And Bobby came up during those years and ultimately went from the state legislature to the Congress. And he and his colleagues got incumbent President Trump to sign the bill. But Bobby Scott's House Resolution 1242, there's several companion pieces of legislation in the Senate also. But Congressman Bobby Scott from the Congressional Black Caucus initiated this, and Trump agreed to sign it, yes.
So here in Philadelphia, you've established the 400-year coalition.
Thanks to Farouk and other members of this coalition, and of course the great Council Lady Janie L. Blackwell, we have Councilwoman Blackwell has put together a commission, an official government body, with the City Council of Philadelphia passed a resolution to establish and set up a commission whereby we in the city, the city will do studies, analysis, scholarly papers, and hold forums and conferences around this question of the 400 years to be published. That's sort of the public sector side, and with Farouk and his leadership of the 400-year coalition, it's sort of the private sector side, which we are all working together to bring all of the organizations in the city of African descent and others to help commemorate this 400 years, with the premise being that from every week, every day, we should be commemorating something of significance within that have taken place in the African diaspora community here in Philadelphia from the 2019 January to 2019 December 31st. And I don't suspect it to end there because I think the opportunity for people to become aware will continue to spur them to learn and want to be a part of it. And I think most importantly for me, at being the oldest guy in the room, is there's so many young people that are interested. So maybe we are at the point where we can pass some things down in a very structured manner, and they can say, listen, I see Stan and Farouk are trying to do this, but they should have done this, you know what I mean, and move it to the next level. So I'm happy to be a part of that, both with the council and of course with the 40-year coalition with Farouk.
So similarly, and you brought up a good point, the end of 2019, which will be the 400 years, 2020, what, in your view, would be?
Well, let me give you the foundation that we're laying to this now. We are, you may have seen, I know I sent to some of my colleagues, you may not have seen it yet, but Philadelphia is already known to have a Little Africa. We have over 50,000 African and Caribbean immigrants living in our city with a large concentration in Southwest Philadelphia. And in that area, we have BBC video and the French news press that have come. And we're building Africa Town in there. And that, what does that mean? We're going to make West and Southwest Philadelphia a major tourist destination for the global African diaspora. People will come to see these wonderful historic events and markers for the African diaspora where they have lived and worked and studied. They'll be able to come and go to great, wonderful African restaurants and Caribbean restaurants along commercial corridors in our city. They'll be able to go from Southwest to Germantown to see the Johnson House, to see all of these phenomenal historical markers that you and I know and live with, and unfortunately many of us just take it for granted. So that's one aspect of Africa Town. The second aspect of Africa Town is that we will build an African Trade Center, an African Performing Arts Center, a hotel, and we hope that we're going to have an African Diaspora Museum with a little different twist. And that twist is to show what Philadelphia has given to the world from its African diaspora community. Think about it. We got a guy like Kwame Nkrumah came here and went to university as a young man, 19, 20 years old, stayed here for 10 years, and he went back to Ghana, became the head of state, and beat the greatest power at his time, the Great Britain, kicked them out of Ghana. And then Ezekwe, the first elected president of Nigeria, went to Lincoln University, went back and did the same thing. So my question is, I mean, we know George Washington cut down a cherry tree, but where was Nkrumah and these guys? Where'd they hang out in Philadelphia? I want to go there. Where'd they come out to learn that revolutionary fervor that they could stand up to the world's greatest known power at that time and win? Not to say that it was an easy trip, but they won. And what we understand today and know as Pan-Africanism evolved out of this struggle and was intensified during these years of the 40s. Even though Pan-Africanism has its history going back to the 1820s and 30s, these are just two classic examples of what Philadelphia has done. I could talk about the great Marcus Garvey. The first UNIA Center was 16th and Columbia, Philadelphia. What was going on in Philadelphia that made it? But we do know historically that Philadelphia is or was the premier cultural center of the black world before Harlem in New York became that cultural center. So what happened? Where are they? I mean, you know Pearl Bailey, you know all the stories, Pearl Bailey, Billie Holiday, you know it all. But we haven't documented it in such a way that our history be comparable to what's happening, what they call the historic center. And I tell the people in the historic center, when I was growing up, my grandmother wouldn't let me go down to what they call a historic district now, then, because it was called Skid Row. They took them 30 years to build this, put hundreds of millions of dollars in it to make it a major tourist attraction for the global, for its white supremacy, you know, which I understand. So I'm not arguing that. I'm saying we have our own destination point, and this should be one of them in West and South where this congregation of people are, but by pulling them together with the African American community, bringing us together, it will be able to be a major destination point. It will be in our tourist center, in the historic district, as we call it in Philadelphia. We bring $11 billion a year. That's why when they told me about the Juneteenth going downtown, I said, well, damn, why you want to continue giving them white people that money? Take it in North Philly or West Philly or South Philly. Because every time somebody goes there, they go to those stores, they feed the wealth, and they create wealth for those people there. So why should we contribute to that? Clearly, sometimes we don't have an option. But by us designing these things like this, we can create that option and help build up and create wealth in our community. Maybe for our entire opportunity to make Philadelphia a destination point for the global aspirin diaspora, think about it. We got 1.3 billion people on the African continent. We don't have, you go to Philadelphia's tourist website right now, you'll see nothing inviting black people to come to Philadelphia. Nothing. Nothing.
Speaking of invitation, if I'm watching this video, what would you have me do for those who are going to watch this video? And then B, if I want to be a part and I want to help this cause, how do I get involved?
That's a great question. Thank you very much. First and foremost, the 400-Year Coalition, we have a website, and we need to get that information out to people so they can go to the website and see what's going on. We're also involved with Farouk and Rashid and Andrew putting together a calendar of events that'll kick off for all of 2019 and hopefully beyond, with the date, the time, and location, those other things. And I think the third thing, whether you're African, African American, or just interested and you want to be able to participate in some way, you get some direction from that website about what you want to do, if you want to join something or you might have something. For instance, this year in April, there'll be about 60,000 people from Caribbean here at the Pin Relays to come to the Pin Relays. They bring in over 700 young people to run in the Pin Relays during that week. So they're going to do something famous that week. We have an African festival at Penn's Landing during that year. We also have the Caribbean Festival at Penn's Landing. Of course, we have a Dune Day. 500,000 people come from around the world to visit a Dune Day. And many, many other events will be in this calendar that you're bringing us together to commemorate who we are, our history, but also to celebrate the great contributions that we've made to Philadelphia and to the world. So the website first. If you don't have a community or organization you want to be a part of, check it out. Just contact us, and we'd love to have people be a part of this historical undertaking.